She announced, "I joined a sugar baby site. You can't support my lifestyle." I said, "Show me your profile." Then revealed I was all 8 of her rich matches, using different photos. The 30K she'd bragged about stealing was marked bills the police were tracking. I, 29 male, was sitting at our kitchen table when Giselle, 26, dropped the bomb. 3 years together, and she hit me with this while I was eating leftover Chinese food. "I joined a sugar baby site," she announced like she was telling me she'd switched to oat milk. "You can't support the lifestyle I deserve." I literally had lo mein hanging out of my mouth. "What?" She flipped her hair, that stupid move she does when she thinks she's being boss. "Look, nothing personal, but your salary is limiting. I need someone who can actually provide." For context, I make 85K a year as a software developer. Not rich, but we lived comfortably. Giselle worked part-time at a boutique, making maybe 20K. Guess whose money paid for her BMW lease, her monthly spa treatments, and her collection of designer bags? "So you're, what? Dating other men for money?" "It's not dating," she rolled her eyes. "It's an arrangement. These men understand the value of my companionship." The audacity. I stayed calm though. "Show me your profile." She actually laughed. "Why? Jealous? Want to see what real success looks like?" She pulled up the site on her phone, turning it toward me with this smug smile. Profile name, Diamond Doll 95. Bio, expensive taste, champagne lifestyle. If you can't handle a high-maintenance goddess, swipe left. Monthly allowance starting at 10K, serious inquiries only. The photos were something. Lingerie shots I'd never seen before. Designer clothes she definitely didn't own when we met. "How long?" I asked. 2 months. Already have 8 generous daddies lined up. Made 30K so far. She was bragging. One of them owns a tech company. Another has a yacht. They appreciate what I bring to the table. And what's that exactly? Class, beauty, the kind of sophistication you never valued. I almost laughed. This girl once tried to return a dress to Target that she'd bought at Walmart. "Where's the 30K? Safe, away from this mediocre life." She stood up, grabbed her Chanel bag, fake B2B. "I'm moving out next week, already put a deposit on a luxury apartment downtown. My new men are helping with rent." She left for her arrangement that night. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes, processing. Then I smiled. See, Giselle didn't know about my side business. I'd been doing freelance security consulting for 2 years, specifically in financial fraud detection. I had access to resources she couldn't imagine. More importantly, I had connections at the district attorney's office from a case I'd worked on. Time to have some fun. Update 1, LMAO. Y'all aren't ready for this. So remember those 8 generous daddies Giselle was bragging about? Yeah, about that. I spent 3 days creating something beautiful. 8 different profiles on that sugar site, each with a complete backstory. Jackson, tech entrepreneur, 34. Dimitri, real estate mogul, 41. Alejandro, investment banker, 38. Kenji, crypto millionaire, 29. Philippe, art dealer, 45. Rohan, surgeon, 37. Bruno, hotel chain heir, 33. Garrett, hedge fund manager, 40. Used AI for the photos, created fake LinkedIn profiles, burner phones for each, the works. My freelance income? Perfect for funding this operation. But here's the genius part. I'd already been documenting her spending for weeks. See, when she said she made 30K, she'd been stealing from my emergency fund. I'd noticed withdrawals, but wanted to see how far she'd go. Every withdrawal was documented, recorded, reported to my lawyer. I matched with her as all 8 profiles. The messages she sent, holy entitlement. Batman to Jackson. "Baby, I need 5K for a shopping spree. A goddess like me shouldn't wear department store clothes." Dimitri, "My rent is 3K this month. I know you understand a woman of my caliber needs the right environment." To Philippe, "There's this Cartier bracelet that would look perfect on me. Only 8K. That's nothing to you, right?" Each persona I created had a different texting style. She was juggling conversations like a pro, sending lingerie pics, making promises about exclusive arrangements. The best part? Every dollar I sent was marked. Literally. I worked with my detective friend Troy, owed me a favor, to use bills from a recent evidence seizure that were photographed and cataloged, completely legal for controlled operations with proper authorization. 3 days in, she texts me, the real me, "Moving out tomorrow. My new place is sick. You could never." I replied, "Cool, good luck." She sent a selfie from her new apartment. I recognized it. She was at a hotel. The deposit she paid, that was my money she stole, thinking she was getting more from her sugar daddies. Meanwhile, Alejandro asked her, "Baby, can we meet Thursday? I want to spoil you properly." Her, "Of course, where should I meet you?" Alejandro, "Ritz-Carlton Bar, 8 p.m., wear something stunning, I have a surprise." She sent back heart emojis and started planning her outfit immediately in my apartment that she hadn't moved out of yet. Thursday was going to be a lit. Update 2. Okay, so Thursday arrived. Giselle spent all day getting ready. Hair salon, nails, spray tan, the works. All paid for with the marked bills Dimitri had sent her for self-care. She left at 7:30 wearing a dress she bought with Jackson's money, jewelry from Philippe, and shoes from Bruno. Girl looked like a walking evidence locker. I was already at the Ritz-Carlton. Not alone though. Troy was there with his partner, Detective Monica Reeves. They had a whole file ready. 8 p.m. Giselle walks in looking around for Alejandro. I texted from the burner. "Running late, baby. Order champagne. I'll cover it." She orders a $300 bottle. Doesn't even hesitate. 8:15 p.m. I walk over. "Hey Giselle." Her face went white. "What are you doing here?" "Meeting my girlfriend. Or should I say, Diamond Doll 95. I don't know what you're." I pulled out my phone, showed her all 8 conversations. "Jackson says hi. So does Dimitri. Oh, and Philippe wanted me to tell you that bracelet looked better in the store." The transition from confusion to rage to fear was beautiful. You catfished me?" "Catfished? Nah, I'd call it fraud investigation. See those nice officers at the bar?" She turned. Troy and Monica were walking over. "Miss Giselle Hoffman?" Monica's voice was pure professionalism. "We need to discuss the $30,000 in stolen funds you've been spending." "What? I didn't steal anything. Those men gave me that money." I smiled. "Those men don't exist. But the money you took from my emergency fund? That's real and documented. Every single withdrawal." Troy stepped forward. "Ma'am, we've tracked $30,000 in marked bills that were reported stolen. They've been used at..." He pulled out a list. "Nordstrom, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, the Marriott downtown." I didn't. "The serial numbers match," Monica added. "Your boyfriend here filed a report 2 weeks ago. We've been tracking the bills since." Giselle turned to me, tears starting. Not pretty tears either. Full mascara running catastrophe. "You set me up?" "Set you up? You announced you were leaving me for sugar daddies. You stole from me. You bragged about it. I just facilitated your fantasy. This is entrapment." Troy actually laughed. "Ma'am, entrapment is when law enforcement induces someone to commit a crime they wouldn't otherwise commit. You stole the money before any of this started. We just tracked where you spent it." "But wait, it gets better. Remember that luxury apartment she put a deposit on?" "Yeah, she'd used my information as a cosigner without my knowledge. The landlord called me that morning because the deposit check bounced. Turns out you can't deposit money orders from fake sugar daddies. Also," I added, "Jerome from your boutique called. Something about missing inventory? Apparently some of those designer pieces you've been flaunting match their missing items list." Now she was sobbing. "You destroyed my life." "No, babe, you destroyed your own life. I just documented it." Monica stepped forward with the cuffs. "Miss Hoffman, you're under arrest for grand theft and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." As they led her away, she screamed, "I hate you. You're nothing, a nobody. I deserved better." I sipped her $300 champagne. Cool. The bartender who'd watched everything poured me another glass. On the house, man. That was epic. Update 3. So it's been 2 weeks since the arrest, and hoo boy did the entitled circus come to town. First, her mom Diane called me crying, not apologizing, crying about how I'd ruined her baby's future. She was just confused. Young women make mistakes. "Diane, she stole $30,000. You make that in 4 months? That's not how theft works, Diane. You could have just let her go. Why did you have to involve police?" "She stole $30,000. Stop being dramatic. You got it back, didn't you?" "I hadn't, actually. Most of it was spent." But Diane didn't need to know that yet. Then came her best friend, Lucia. This girl showed up at my apartment at 11 p.m., wine drunk, demanding I drop the charges. "You're such a small man," she slurred. "Gigi was just trying to level up, and you couldn't handle it." "Level up?" She committed felony theft. She was exploring her options. Men do it all the time. Men steal $30K and call it exploring options? You know what I mean. Rich men trade in wives for younger models constantly. Okay, but they don't usually steal from their current wives first. You're twisting everything. She told me you were controlling, monitoring her spending probably. That's financial abuse. I pulled out my phone, showed her my bank statements. Here's me monitoring her spending. Oh look, $3,000 at Nordstrom, $2,500 at Chanel, $4,000 cash withdrawals, all from my emergency fund. Lucia squinted at the screen. So, you're supposed to spoil your woman. With money she stole? You're impossible. She stormed off, but not before trying to kick my door. Missed and hit the wall. Hobbled away cursing. But the peak entitlement came from Giselle herself. She called from jail using her one phone call. Not to apologize, not to explain, to negotiate. Okay, so here's what's gonna happen, she started, like she was running a board meeting. You're gonna drop these ridiculous charges, I'll forgive you for the catfishing thing, and we can both move on. Forgive me? You'll forgive me? Yeah. You humiliated me. That whole Ritz-Carlton thing was completely unnecessary. You stole $30,000. Oh my God, stop saying that number like it means something. You have savings. Had savings. Whatever. Look, if you don't drop the charges, I'll tell everyone you're an abusive psycho who entrapped me. Good luck with that from jail. I'm serious. I'll ruin your reputation. I'll tell your job you're a predator who preys on vulnerable women. Vulnerable? You called yourself a goddess who deserved better than my mediocre life. That's taken out of context. I have the text messages. Those were private. The mental gymnastics were Olympic level. Giselle, you're being charged with grand theft. You're looking at 3 to 5 years. Maybe get a lawyer instead of making threats. This is not over. When I get out, I hung up. Her public defender called me the next day. Seemed exhausted already. Mr. Morrison, I'm gonna be straight with you. Your ex is difficult. You don't say. She's insisting this is all a misunderstanding. Says the money was a gift. A gift I reported stolen before she spent it? Yeah, she's not grasping that part. She also wants to sue you for emotional distress. For? Creating fake profiles to manipulate her affections. Her words. She was already stealing before I made those profiles. I've explained that multiple times. She says that's irrelevant. How is theft irrelevant to theft charges? Heavy sigh. Mr. Morrison, between you and me, take the plea deal if they offer one. This trial would be exhausting. Meanwhile, I'm getting messages from random men. Turns out Giselle gave my number to her other matches before she got arrested. These dudes were mad. Hey, is this Diamond Doll 95's boyfriend? She owes me for the gifts I sent. Where's Giselle? We had an arrangement. Your girl scammed me out of $2K. Wait, what? Turns out our girl was double dipping. While taking my marked bills as 8 different sugar daddies, she was also talking to real ones, getting money, then ghosting them. One guy, Frederick, actually met me for coffee to explain. She said she needed $3K for her mom's surgery. Sent it immediately. Then she blocked me. Her mom's a yoga instructor, very healthy. Yeah, I figured that out. She hit up my brother too. Different sob story. Something about escaping an abusive ex. Let me guess, I'm the abusive ex? Yep. Said you controlled all her money and hit her. I have never laid a hand on her. Oh, I believe you now. But she was convincing. Crying on video calls, showing bruises. Bruises? He showed me screenshots. She had bruises all right from her CrossFit class. I know because I paid for that membership and she'd posted about the tough workout on Instagram the same day. How much did she get from you guys total? Frederick pulled out his phone, did some math with his brother. Between us, about 8K. Jesus. There's a GroupMe chat. Hold on. He added me to a group called Diamond Doll 95 Victims, 23 members. The stories were all similar. Medical emergencies, escaping abuse, family crises. The total? Over 50K. In 2 months. One guy typed, "We should press charges." Another, "Already did. Detective Reeves has my statement." Monica Reeves, my Troy's partner. This was beautiful. I called Troy, "You guys building a case? Bro, your ex is looking at federal charges now, wire fraud across state lines. This is FBI territory." FBI, 3 of the guys are from different states. She used electronic transfers. That's federal. The universe was serving justice with extra sauce. Final update. 6 months later, trial day, Giselle had somehow bonded out, her mom took a second mortgage, and spent the entire time trying to rebuild her image. She started a blog, Surviving Financial Abuse, My Story. I kid you not. Posted daily about how men weaponize money and how she was a victim of systematic manipulation. She got maybe 12 followers. 3 were bot accounts. She also tried to start a GoFundMe. Nope, I'm kidding. She tried starting a support fund through some sketchy app. Raised $37, probably all from her mom. Day of the trial, she showed up in a conservative suit, hair in a bun, minimal makeup, playing the victim hard. Her lawyer, still the exhausted public defender, tried arguing temporary insanity. Ms. Hoffman was experiencing a mental health crisis induced by financial stress and emotional manipulation. The prosecutor, a sharks in heels woman named Tamara, wasn't having it. Your Honor, Ms. Hoffman systematically defrauded 23 men over 2 months, stealing over $80,000 total. She created elaborate lies, fake emergencies, and false abuse allegations. This wasn't insanity. It was a business plan. They played recordings of Giselle's jail calls. Remember she had more than one? Yeah, she called Lucia too. Girl, when I get out, I'm gonna start a makeup line for wrongfully accused women. This whole experience has been so traumatic, but also like inspiring. I'm thinking of calling it Innocent Glow. The judge actually rubbed his temples. Then came character witnesses. Diane took the stand. My daughter is a good girl who just wanted nice things. Is that a crime? No, but theft is. She didn't know it was theft. She thought those men were giving her gifts, the men that didn't exist. Well, she didn't know that. She didn't know her own boyfriend was creating fake profiles. He tricked her. He's manipulative. The judge, ma'am, your daughter stole money before the fake profiles were created. Please focus on the timeline. Diane huffed. I don't see why timeline matters. The point is, she suffered enough. Then came my testimony. I just presented facts, bank statements, text messages, the marked bills tracking, the dating profiles, the messages between her and sugar daddies. Giselle's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive. You created elaborate fake personas to deceive my client. After she'd already stolen from me, yes. You admit to deception? I admit to catching a thief. You humiliated her publicly. She humiliated herself, I just documented it. You could have handled this privately. I tried. She laughed and said I was pathetic. Giselle suddenly stood up. I was exploring my value in the marketplace. Judge, Ms. Hoffman, sit down. He never appreciated me. I deserve better. Ms. Hoffman, control yourself or I'll hold you in contempt. She sat down but kept muttering about small dick energy, loud enough for everyone to hear. The verdict came back in 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Grand theft, wire fraud, filing false reports. Oh yeah, she'd tried to file abuse charges against me that got thrown out. Identity theft, the co-signing thing. The federal charges were separate but guaranteed she was going away for a while. Sentencing was beautiful. The judge looked tired but also kind of amused. Ms. Hoffman, in my 20 years on the bench, I've rarely seen such a clear case of entitlement leading to criminal behavior. You had a partner willing to support you, and instead of appreciating that, you decided you deserved more. So you stole. Then you defrauded multiple innocent people. When caught, instead of showing remorse, you've spent 6 months claiming to be a victim. Giselle started crying, ugly crying. Your tears now don't erase your choices then. You're sentenced to 4 years state prison, followed by 3 years federal, sentences to run concurrently. You'll serve 4 years total with possibility of parole in 2.5. You're also ordered to pay restitution of $80,000. $80,000? I don't have that. Then you'll have plenty of time to figure out a payment plan. As they led her away, she screamed at me, I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life over money. I said nothing, just watched her go. Diane rushed at me in the hallway. You monster, she loved you. No, Diane, she loved my credit card. You'll regret this. You'll never find another woman like her. God, I hope not. Troy met me outside. Buy you a beer? Absolutely. Got a letter from Giselle last week, from prison. Not an apology, oh no, a business proposal. She wants me to invest in her post-prison plan, a dating app for financially ambitious women seeking their worth. I'm not kidding. She included a whole business plan, projected earnings, marketing strategy, even suggested I could be a silent partner and make back everything you lost and more. The audacity is almost admirable. Almost. I sent back a one-word response. No. Got another letter yesterday. She's now threatening to write a tell-all book about me called Trapped: How My Ex Weaponized the Justice System. Her cellmate apparently has a cousin in publishing. I forwarded it to Tamara, the prosecutor. She called me laughing. She does realize she can't profit from her crimes, right? Son of Sam Law. Don't think she's familiar with that one. Well, she's about to be. As for me, life's good. Promoted to senior developer. Bought a nice condo with my money. Dating a teacher named Ramona who thinks this whole story is better than Netflix and pays for her own dinners. The marked bills? Mostly recovered from the luxury goods she bought. Sold them at police auction. Got back about $40K total. The Sugar Baby site? Shut down after the FBI investigation revealed it was basically a fraud marketplace. Frederick and the other guys formed an actual support group. They meet monthly. Call themselves Sugar Victims Anonymous. Frederick sent me a t-shirt as a joke. Lucia still posts about what a monster I am. Gets maybe 3 likes per post. Diane sent me a bill for her emotional damages and therapy costs. I framed it. And Giselle? Last I heard, she's teaching yoga in prison and telling everyone she's a political prisoner of the patriarchy. Still has 3 years left to go. Cool? Cool. P.S. To anyone thinking about dating someone who says you can't support their lifestyle, run. That's not a partner, that's a parasite with a Chanel addiction. P.P.S. No, I won't share the Sugar Baby site name or the marked bills trick details. Don't try this at home. Get a lawyer and proper law enforcement involvement if someone steals from you. Giselle, if you're reading this from the prison library, your mom says hi and wants her house back. She announced, spent your mom's cancer treatment fund. She was dying anyway. I said, actually, she's in remission. Then I had her arrested for elder abuse. She got 10 years. I'm writing this a week after my life was cleaved in two, the before and the after. The before was a life of anxious hope, of watching the woman I loved, my mother, fight a battle against stage 4 ovarian cancer. The after is a cold, quiet landscape of betrayal and methodical justice. For 2 years, our world has revolved around oncology appointments, chemotherapy cycles, and the terrifying quarterly PET scans. My father passed away 5 years ago, leaving behind a modest life insurance policy. I took that money, added a significant portion of my own savings, and created what we called the Lifeline Fund. It was a joint savings account holding just over $150,000. It was untouchable. Sacred money earmarked for anything insurance wouldn't cover. Experimental treatments, specialized home care, alternative therapies, anything that might give my mom, Eleanor, another month, another year. My girlfriend of 4 years, Megan, was my rock through it all. She lived with me, helped manage the bills, and held my hand in sterile waiting rooms. I trusted her completely. So completely, in fact, that I gave her a debit card for the Lifeline account. The idea was that if an emergency came up with my mom's care while I was swamped at my engineering firm, she could handle it. It was a symbol of our partnership. Last Tuesday was the best day of my life. We were at the oncologist's office for Mom's latest scan results. The doctor, a man known for his cautious realism, walked in with a smile I hadn't seen in years. "Eleanor," he said, his voice warm. "I don't know how to explain it. The tumors are gone, the markers are non-existent. You're in complete remission." We both just broke down, sobbing with a relief so profound it was physically painful. 2 years of holding our breath and we could finally exhale. Remission wasn't a cure, but it was a future. The Lifeline Fund was now more important than ever, a security blanket for the next 5 years of monitoring, maintenance drugs, and the ever-present fear of recurrence. I drove home on a cloud of pure joy, stopping to pick up champagne and my mom's favorite pastries. I walked into the apartment I shared with Megan, ready to share the miracle with her. "Meg," I shouted, bursting through the door, "you're not going to believe this. She's in remission, complete remission." Megan was in the kitchen. She turned and the look on her face was not joy. It was not relief. It was the stark, blood-drained terror of a cornered animal. My euphoria evaporated, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. "What is it?" I asked, my voice suddenly low. "Megan, what's wrong?" She couldn't meet my eyes. She just stared at a spot on the floor, twisting her hands. "Leo, about the fund." My heart stopped. "What about the fund?" Her confession came out in a garbled, pathetic whisper. She'd started a business, an online boutique. She'd needed capital for inventory, for a website, for marketing, and she'd used the Lifeline Fund. All of it. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. You, what? I was going to pay it back, she insisted, finally looking at me with eyes full of self-pity, not remorse. I was going to surprise you. The doctors, they all said she had 6 months, maybe a year. The prognosis was terrible, Leo. And then she said the words that will haunt me for the rest of my life. The words that severed any last shred of empathy I had for her. I just thought she was dying anyway. I wanted to build something for us, for our future. I thought I could make something good out of a horrible situation. The silence that followed was thick with the magnitude of her monstrosity. She hadn't just stolen money. She had looked at the grim prognosis of the woman who had treated her like a daughter and saw a business opportunity. She had placed a bet on my mother's death. A switch flipped in my brain. The hurt, the shock, it all receded, replaced by an ice-cold, crystalline clarity. Actually, Megan, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion at all, she's in remission. She blinked, confused. What? But that's good, right? No, I said, stepping back from her, as if she were a contagion. It's not good for you. You seem to misunderstand what that money was for. Remission isn't a finish line. That fund was for the next 5 years of scans that cost $5,000 a pop. It was for the maintenance drugs that cost $10,000 a month. It was for the very real possibility of a recurrence that would require a second, even more expensive fight. You didn't just spend the money we had for her to die peacefully. You stole her chance to live. I took my phone out of my pocket. She watched, a flicker of fear in her eyes. What are you doing? My mother is a 65-year-old cancer patient. You, a person in a position of trust, systematically stole her entire life savings under the assumption she would be dead soon. That isn't a relationship problem, Megan. That is a felony. Specifically, it's financial elder abuse. Her face went white. You can't. Leo, please, it was a mistake. We can fix this. No, we can't, I said, dialing the non-emergency police line. But the district attorney can. I told her to leave her keys and her phone, a phone that was on my family plan, on the counter, and get out of my apartment. She started to argue, then saw the look in my eyes and simply crumpled. She grabbed her purse and fled. I stood in the silent apartment, the celebratory champagne warming on the counter. Then I made the call. I reported the crime calmly and clearly. The after had begun. Update 1. The immediate aftermath was a blur of legal and administrative triage. The police were at my apartment within an hour of my call. I gave my statement, providing the account number and my initial estimate of the stolen funds. The officer was professional, but I could see the flicker of disgust in his eyes when I explained the context. He gave me a card for a detective in the Financial Crimes Unit and told me to expect a call. The next day I was contacted by Detective Miller, a weary-looking man who'd clearly seen the worst of human nature. I also received a call from a caseworker at Adult Protective Services, APS, who had been alerted by the police report. Suddenly, I wasn't just a betrayed boyfriend. I was the primary witness in a state-level investigation. My first task was to pull every bank statement for the Lifeline Fund from the past year. What I found was nauseating. Megan hadn't taken the money in one lump sum. It was a slow, methodical bleed. It started 8 months ago, right after a particularly grim oncology report. A $10,000 withdrawal here for inventory. A $5,000 transfer there for web design. Another $15,000 for a marketing consultant. She had drained over $150,000, all while smiling in my face, holding my hand, and asking how my mom was feeling. I found the business she'd created. Nova Bloom Boutique. It was a generic, soulless online store selling overpriced fast fashion jewelry. I found the invoices and receipts in her email, which I still had access to via our shared cloud account. I printed everything, organized it into a binder, and handed it over to Detective Miller. He called it a prosecutor's dream. Telling my mother was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I sat with her in her small, sunny living room and laid it all out. I expected tears or anger. Instead, her face was a mask of profound sorrow. "Oh, Leo," she whispered, taking my hand. "That poor broken girl. I'm not sad about the money. We'll figure that out. I'm sad for you, and I'm sad for her." that her heart is so empty. Her grace was humbling. It erased any doubt I had about my course of action. I wasn't just doing this for the money. I was doing it to honor my mother's strength and to ensure the person who preyed on her vulnerability faced real, unavoidable consequences. Megan was arrested a week after my initial call. Detective Miller informed me they had picked her up at her sister's house. He said she was completely shocked, as if she genuinely believed there would be no repercussions. Then came the calls from her family. Her mother called me screaming, "She made a mistake. She's a good girl who got in over her head. You're destroying her life over money. Her mother has cancer. For God's sake, you should know better." "Your daughter gambled with my mother's life," I replied calmly. "The fact that you see that as a simple mistake tells me everything I need to know. Don't contact me again." The system was moving, slow but powerful. I had done my part. Now I had to trust it to do its job. Update 2. The wheels of justice grind slowly, but they grind fine. The district attorney's office formally charged Megan with 2 felonies, grand theft and financial elder abuse. The second charge was the more serious one, carrying a significantly stiffer penalty due to the victim's age and vulnerable status. We met with the prosecutor, a sharp, empathetic woman named Miss Chen. She walked my mother and me through the process. She made it clear that Megan's actions were not just theft, but a profound violation of trust that the state took very seriously. Megan's defense strategy quickly became apparent. Her lawyer, a public defender, was attempting to frame the entire situation as a domestic dispute, a business deal between a couple that went sour. They claimed I was a controlling partner who had initially agreed to invest in her business, but then turned on her after we broke up, using the elder abuse statute as a weapon. They argued that because it was a joint account, she had a legal right to access the funds. It was a weak, desperate argument, and Miss Chen dismantled it with precision. First, the joint account. While Megan had access, the prosecution subpoenaed texts and emails between us where the purpose of the fund was explicitly and repeatedly discussed. I had dozens of messages saying things like, "Just transferred another $5 to the Lifeline Fund for Mom's next treatment." The intent of the money was clearly documented. Second, the elder abuse. The victim was not me, but my mother. The funds were established for her sole benefit. Megan used her position of trust as my partner and as a surrogate daughter to my mother to gain access to and exploit those funds. The most damning piece of evidence was the timeline. Miss Chen's team created a large chart for the preliminary hearing. On one side, it listed my mother's oncology reports, prognosis worsens, new growth detected. On the other side, it listed Megan's withdrawals, $10,000 for Nova Bloom LLC, $7,500 for marketing. Every time my mother's health declined, Megan's spending accelerated. She wasn't just stealing, she was liquidating assets based on a death watch. The DA offered her a plea deal. Plead guilty to both charges and they would recommend a sentence of 4 years. According to Ms. Chen, Megan refused it without a moment's hesitation. She was still convinced she was the victim. She believed she could walk into a courtroom, cry, and convince a jury that she was just an ambitious young woman with a broken heart. It was the most profound miscalculation of her life. Final update. The trial lasted 3 days. It was the most emotionally draining experience of my life. My mother had to testify. Seeing her on the stand, frail from her treatments but with a spine of steel, was both heartbreaking and inspiring. She didn't speak with anger, only with a quiet sadness. She described how Megan was like a daughter to her, and what that money, that hope had meant. When I took the stand, I simply recounted the facts. I told them about the day of the good news. I repeated Megan's exact words. She was dying anyway. I saw a few of the jurors physically flinch. Megan's testimony was a catastrophe. She tried to portray herself as a savvy, well-intentioned partner. Under cross-examination from Ms. Chen, her story crumbled. She couldn't explain the damning timeline. She couldn't produce a business plan or any evidence that I had agreed to an investment. She came off as callous, evasive, and profoundly self-absorbed. She cried on the stand, but her tears seemed to be for herself, not for the immense harm she had caused. The jury was out for less than 2 hours. The verdict was guilty on all counts. The sentencing was 2 weeks later. The courtroom was silent as the judge addressed Megan. He was an older man, and he looked at her not with anger, but with a kind of weary contempt. "Miss Gable," he began, his voice echoing in the chamber. "In my 20 years on this bench, I have seen many kinds of theft, born of desperation, addiction, or greed. But your crime is of a different, more chilling nature. You did not just steal money, you stole hope from a woman in the most vulnerable state of her life. You looked at a countdown to a person's death and saw it as a business deadline. This was not a mistake. This was a predatory act of profound moral depravity." He then delivered the sentence. For the charge of grand theft, 5 years. For the charge of financial elder abuse, 10 years, to be served concurrently. A sharp gasp came from Megan's family. She just stared blankly as if she couldn't process the words. 10 years. I walked out of the courtroom with my arm around my mother. There was no joy, no sense of victory. Just a quiet, somber sense of an ending. Justice had been done. It has been nearly a year since that day. Megan is in a state correctional facility. The boutique, of course, failed spectacularly. What little money was left in its accounts was seized for restitution, but it was a pittance. I never saw a significant portion of the money again. I've been working double time, and friends and family helped, and we have slowly started to rebuild the Lifeline Fund. My mother remains in remission. Her health is good. That is the only victory that matters. People have asked me if I regret having her arrested, if I should have just handled it myself. My answer is always the same. What Megan did wasn't a personal slight, it was a crime, a serious, calculated crime against a vulnerable person. I didn't have her arrested. I reported a crime, and the justice system, for all its flaws, did its job. She wasn't sentenced by me, she was sentenced by her own actions. She got exactly what she deserved. 10 years.